Before humans invented language, they were already building tools, hunting in groups, raising children, and surviving predators. Which creates a strange question. If nobody had words yet, what exactly was happening inside their minds? Because for most of human history, your ancestors lived in complete silence. No names, no conversations, no stories. And somehow, they still became human. The oldest known writing system is only about 5,000 years old. Agriculture began roughly 10,000 years ago, but Homo sapiens have existed for around 300,000 years, which means that for at least 290,000 years, humans lived without civilization, without books, without recorded history, and for a large portion of that time without anything we would recognize as true language. And yet those silent humans crossed continents. They survived ice ages. They hunted animals larger than cars. They buried their dead. They made art. Something intelligent was already happening inside their minds long before words existed. But understanding what that experience felt like is almost impossible for modern humans. Because language doesn't just help you communicate, it shapes thought itself. Right now, as you listen to this, there's probably a voice inside your head, a constant stream of words narrating your life. Psychologists call this inner speech. And most humans experience it almost continuously. You use language to remember the past, to imagine the future, to organize emotions, to explain yourself to yourself. But what happens when that voice doesn't exist yet? In the 1930s, Soviet psychologist Lev Vygotsky proposed something radical. He believed human thought and language are deeply connected. Children first learn language socially, speaking outwardly to others. Then, eventually, that speech turns inward. The voice in your head begins as conversation, which raises a disturbing possibility. Before language existed, humans may have experienced consciousness in a fundamentally different way. Not quieter, different. In modern neuroscience, researchers studying people born deaf without access to formal sign language discovered something fascinating. These individuals could still solve problems, recognize patterns, understand cause and effect, and navigate the world intelligently. But many struggled with abstract concepts tied heavily to language. Things like precise time, hypothetical reasoning, or organizing complex narratives about themselves. Language wasn't creating intelligence, but it was changing its structure. And ancient humans may have existed in that strange boundary state for thousands of generations. Intelligent enough to survive, not yet symbolic enough to fully explain reality to themselves. So what did thinking actually look like before words? The answer was probably images, emotions, instinct, spatial memory, physical sensation. If you've ever had a dream before the inner voice fully activates, you know the feeling. Things happen. You understand them somehow. But not through sentences. Your ancestors likely experienced large parts of reality this way. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups have found that tracking animals often relies on forms of awareness people struggle to verbalize. Hunters notice disturbed grass, broken branches, subtle footprints, distant sounds, and body intuition all at once. They often know where an animal went before they can consciously explain why. The brain evolved to recognize patterns long before it evolved to describe them. And for early humans, survival depended on that nonverbal intelligence. But eventually, something changed. Around 100,000 to 70,000 years ago, evidence of symbolic behavior begins appearing more frequently in the archaeological record. Shell beads in Blombos Cave, geometric carvings, pigments used for decoration, burial rituals, then cave paintings, music, myths. Somewhere during this period, humans crossed a threshold. We stopped merely reacting to reality. We began representing it. And representation changes everything. Because the moment you create a word for something, you separate yourself from it. A deer is no longer just movement in the forest. Now it's an idea, a category, a thing you can discuss even when it isn't there. Language gave humans the ability to think about absent things, future things, imaginary things. That's one of the biggest differences between humans and every other species on Earth. Most animals exist almost entirely in the present moment. Humans live partly inside simulations, inside stories, inside imagined futures, And language made that possible. In 2014, researchers at MIT used brain imaging to study how language shapes perception itself. They found that attaching words to objects changes how quickly and efficiently the brain processes them. Language doesn't simply label reality after the fact, it restructures reality as you experience it, which means ancient humans before language may have perceived the world in a way modern humans can barely reconstruct anymore. Less abstract, more immediate, more sensory, more emotionally raw. And strangely, there may still be traces of that older mind hidden inside you. When you panic suddenly before understanding why. When music affects you emotionally without words. When you instantly recognize danger before consciously processing it. When a smell unlocks a forgotten memory. Those systems are older than language. Far older. Your nervous system was evolving for millions of years before words arrived, and language may have changed us in ways we still don't fully understand. Because words don't just help humans cooperate, words allow humans to compress reality. The word tree contains millions of individual trees. The word war contains thousands of deaths. The word love compresses one of the most complex emotional experiences humans can feel into 4 letters. Language turns reality into symbols, and symbols can be manipulated faster than reality itself. That's why humans became so powerful so quickly. Once knowledge could be spoken clearly, it no longer died with the individual. One human learns how to make fire, teaches the group teaches children. Knowledge begins stacking across generations. This is called cumulative culture, and it's probably the single most important force in human history. A lion today hunts almost exactly like lions hunted 10,000 years ago. But humans from 10,000 years ago would barely recognize the world you live in now, because language allowed information to accumulate instead of resetting every generation. And yet language came with a cost. The moment humans could name themselves, they also became capable of psychological suffering in entirely new ways. You cannot feel ashamed without constructing an identity. You cannot fear the distant future without imagining it first. You cannot experience existential dread without symbolic thought. Language gave humans civilization. But it may also have created anxiety, overthinking, depression, and the endless voice inside your head that never fully stops talking. Philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein once wrote, "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world." But the reverse may also be true. The expansion of language expanded human suffering along with human possibility. And maybe that's why silence feels so strange to modern people. Most humans today are almost never truly without language. You wake up and immediately consume words, texts, videos, notifications, conversations, thoughts. Your mind is saturated with symbols every waking moment. But for most of human history, silence was normal. The wind through trees, footsteps near a fire, the sound of breathing in darkness, long stretches of existence untouched by narration, and somewhere inside your brain, that older human still exists. The one before constant language, before endless explanation, before identity became a story you repeat to yourself every day. For hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors survived without words. They loved without poetry, grieved without philosophy, feared without religion, and looked up at the night sky without a single name for the stars above them. Then language arrived, and humans began building invisible worlds inside their own minds. Civilizations, gods, laws, history, money, nations. Everything modern humans live inside today began as sounds coming out of somebody's mouth. A species that once lived entirely in physical reality slowly moved into symbolic reality instead. And we never went back. The strange part is that even now, after thousands of years of language, your deepest experiences still resist words completely. Pain, love, grief, awe. There are moments humans can feel fully but never perfectly explain, as if some ancient part of the mind still exists beyond language, a reminder of what consciousness may have looked like before the first human being ever spoke.